Hi, this is Trudy DeWitt, and welcome to today's Calix webinar entitled Buzzwords or Business Opportunities, Making Sense of 50G-PON, Wi-Fi 7, and AI. Thanks for joining. We'll officially kick this off shortly. We're just waiting for folks as they continue to join. I see people joining, just a couple more, maybe another 30 seconds, and we'll get rolling. Okay, let's get rolling. Before we get started, there are some housekeeping items we'd just like to address. First, the session is being recorded and a link to the replay will be sent to all of those who registered. So if you want to share it with your team, it'll be in your inbox soon. Second, there will be a designated time for Q&As at the end of the presentation. Please use the Q&A panel at the bottom of your screen to drop your questions in at any time. And finally, we'll have 2 poll questions, and we invite you to participate as we look to gain insights on your direction and how we can help you in the future. So with that, and without further ado, I'd like to introduce today's host, Andre Vera, Product Marketing Director at Calix. The mic's all yours, Andre.
Thank you, Trudy. I'm so excited and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today on the webinar. I'm really excited. As Trudy mentioned, my name is Andre Vieira, and I'm focused on helping service providers connect subscribers to their services and their communities to the world. And joining me today on the panel are distinguished technologists and subject matter experts. First, Arabenda Bose from our product line leadership team for Calix Cloud. John Casadante, our marketing manager for Unlimited Subscriber, and Mike Emmendorfer, our VP of Technology and Field CTO, and Alan Marks, our Calix Cloud Marketing Manager, and lastly, but not least, George Wan, our product line leader for Unlimited Subscriber. We're really excited to have, again, for you to join. We're here today to explore the critical question, are today's tech buzzwords like 50G-PON and Wi-Fi 7 and AI just hype, or do they represent real business opportunities? It's not just that, but also where, when, and how do you integrate these technologies into your network and your business success? So you'll learn about that during the webinar today. Clearly, technology is all around us. I mean, we live in a technical world. And from an agenda perspective, here's what we're going to cover on the agenda. We're going to first cover the introduction to technology myths and reality. Then we're going to go individually into the premise area with Wi-Fi 7, the access network with 50G-PON and network slicing. And we're going to explore the myths around also artificial intelligence. And finally, we're going to tie that in terms of how do you integrate these technologies and what's the best way to do that. Again, I'm super excited. So next, let's quickly talk about our industry, right? It's an industry that's moving really, really fast. It's growing fast, and it's really easy to get swept up in the excitement of new technologies as they come on board. I mean, we all do that. I do that as a technologist myself, but it's also easy to fall into this trap of chasing trends that don't align with the strategic goals of the company, or sometimes it's dismissing innovations that could transform your business. That's why in today's session, it's really focused on this myth versus reality. And we'll unpack those misconceptions, as I mentioned before, and explore these technologies and what they actually enable. So let's figure out how we're going to help you cut through the noise here and remove the doubt on what is holding you back from fully embracing these technologies. But more importantly, we're going to connect these innovations to what really matters, and that is business value for you. Because it's not about the technology itself, it's really about how it helps broadband service providers like yourselves. Many of you simplify operations, innovate faster, and grow sustainably. So let's dive in and challenge those assumptions, uncover how to demystify and embrace those innovations, and become really the building blocks for success. Next, I wanted to give some real world examples, and many of you will recognize these of technology myths and how one of the books that I enjoy is The Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton Christensen, and there he talks about how can technologies and myths stall business growth, and especially when companies cling to outdated assumptions about innovations and marketplace disruption. The history is full of these examples. I have two here that came to mind, and I wanted to share those with you about these misconceptions about the technologies and their brand, and really companies that really look to position their position in the marketplace that drove the industry to success and kind of focus away from the reality. The first example on the left is one that a lot of us are familiar with, and that's this disruptive innovation. Technologies are inferior and not worth investing in. And that's a myth, right? The reality is that that disruptive innovations often start with lower performance in traditional metrics, but offer new value propositions, simplicity, affordability, and accessibility, and you need to discover those. In this example, Kodak, as we all know, and many of us do, a famous story, dismissed digital photography as a low quality, not a threat to their film business, right? They were the largest, global film business, and they were protecting that. By the time digital cameras improved and became mainstream, Kodak had lost its market leadership and filed for bankruptcy. The second example is we'll invest when the market is ready. So many companies really just invest when they feel it's ready, but they don't embrace new technologies and believe they're myths. And really, it's waiting for the market to mature before investment in disruptive technology often means missing early adopter curves and losing the competitive advantage. On the right-hand side here, you see BlackBerry delayed touchscreen development, believing that physical keyboards were essential for business users, but Apple really redefined and still is redefining, the smartphone and mobile phone category. And really, BlackBerry and also Nokia here is another company where they kind of clung to their existing operating system and really prioritized their hardware over the software ecosystem in their app store, which ultimately led to the decline in market share. So as you can see, these are disruptive technologies that sometimes when you look at them in the rearview mirror, they look obvious, but back then there was definitely a lot of challenges and myths and misconceptions. So next, I wanted to, Trudy, if we could put the poll and get the audience's feedback on what, Alan, if we could read the question.
Yep. Okay. Yep. What are the biggest challenges in adopting new networking technologies? If you could just choose, I think you'll be able to choose the top 3 of these. Integration with legacy systems, scalability and performance, cost and budget constraints, human resources and training needs, interoperability, deployment complexity, monitoring and management tools. Curious to see what we get here. I have some thoughts about what might be the 3 most popular ones.
Yeah, I'm curious too. We all face different challenges, but let's see what we come up with. What do you think, Alan?
Yeah. Yeah, obviously cost and budget constraints, that's sort of like common across everyone. And in this case, it's 71% in the poll. Integration with legacy systems, 61%. That makes total sense also. That's something that, everybody is dealing with, or a lot of folks are dealing with. And then, then it's kind of like between the deployment complexity and I was thinking human resources and training needs would kind of be in there. So it doesn't surprise me too much. I think that's great feedback. Thanks to everyone who answered on that poll.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yeah, definitely, Alan. I feel like the complexity is always there, especially with new technology, and there's like a learning curve as we
Yeah.
see with AI currently. So we'll hear more about that soon. So next, let me switch gears and present you our first myth versus reality. And I'm going to introduce John Casadante and George Wan, who are going to talk to you about premises and myths and reality. John?
Thanks. Thanks, Andre. Thanks, everyone, for joining today. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide and we'll move on. So we are at a point where things are like on the edge of tomorrow. So with Wi-Fi 7, although that it's been introduced since January 2024 into the marketplace, we're still on a heavy ramp. And the reality for a lot of us is, how do we embrace Wi-Fi 7? And how do we take advantage of things? And there's two different pictures on two different sides of the picture here. The left-hand side representing the broadband service provider aspect, and then you also have the aspect of the actual user. We've all enjoyed Wi-Fi, and my bet is that the vast majority of us are using Wi-Fi for connectivity today. So let's move on and talk a little bit about what we're going to discuss in terms of myth and reality. So next slide. So here's all the questions that we're going to be reviewing, and we're going to go one by one, and we'll try to rapidly give you some perspective on this. And so we'll start off, first of all, with the broadband service provider. So let's go to the next slide, Andre. And so as I present these questions to George Wong, I will make sure I'll be monitoring any questions that come up as well. So I encourage you to add any questions as we go. So George, number one myth that we seem to be dealing with is whether Wi-Fi 7 is really ready for mass adoption in North America, in the world. I'll pass it on to you.
Yeah, hey, John. Hey, good morning, everyone. Since 11 a.m. in California, and good afternoon for the rest of you in different time zones. I would answer this question in two ways. One is really from a marketing perspective, and the other one is from technology perspective. From the marketing side, since 2001, there have been more than 5,000 Wi-Fi devices that can support 6 gigahertz band. So most people don't realize that, but it's really creeping up. As a matter of fact, Wi-Fi Alliance project that by 2028, there'll be 2.1 billion devices that can support 6 gigahertz. So this is definitely ready for prime time in terms of the number of devices available in the Wi-Fi market. Secondly, from the technical side, Wi-Fi 7, like any previous generation of Wi-Fi, is backward compatible. So it really doesn't hurt you by deploying Wi-Fi 7, even if you have some legacy devices in the network, whether it's Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 5. In fact, they go all the way to 11A and 11B. So I would say that if you look at the number of devices and the technology itself, it's definitely ready for prime time for mass deployment.
Great. Yeah, thank you for that, George. Okay, Andre, let's try number two. Number two myth being the deployment angle from a service provider. So deploying Wi-Fi 7 access points, George, is that all I need to worry about?
Yes and no, but really, if you look at the fire rate of Wi-Fi 7, it is really high, right? So as an example, Calix have deployed the latest generation of Wi-Fi 7 router, and that has 21 gig of fire rate, okay? So it has tremendous amount of bandwidth on the Wi-Fi side. So it really makes sense to deploy in a holistic approach, which means that on the WAN side, we should be deploying multi-gig, right? And how do you deploy multi-gig? Of course, it's if you're using fiber today, of course, XGS can provide you 10 gig of PHY physical rate, but of course, after overhead, it's about 8 gig. So it really makes sense to kind of deploy it as a total solution on the WAN side, as well as on the Wi-Fi side. And what do you get in return for that? Obviously, you gain increased ARPU, as well as stickiness that come with multi-gig whole home coverage.
Yeah, thank you, George. And I tend to agree that, we all think that once we buy the technology, it's immediately available to us, but there's so much more behind the scenes that has to be adopted. Andre, let's go on to the next one. This one I'm sure is near and dear to everyone's heart on the phone. Let's talk about the expensive aspect of Wi-Fi 7. Is it truly expensive?
Actually, quite the contrary. If you look at all the benefits that Wi-Fi 7 provides, you would be extremely willing to want to deploy Wi-Fi 7. So what does Wi-Fi 7 provide? Obviously, better subscriber experience and stickiness and reduced churn. Why? Because it really gives your customer a lot more bandwidth and a lot less interference. As we mentioned that the 6 gigahertz is opening up 1.2 gigahertz of channel width, okay? And along with that, obviously, it makes you more competitive because it's getting to a point that most people are deploying Wi-Fi 7 already, or at least starting to. So it gives you more better customer experience, more stickiness. And lastly, the most important is that you can increase your ARPU by deploying Wi-Fi 7 along with the extra WAN bandwidth that come with it. So I would say in terms of Wi-Fi 7, you may be paying a little bit more, but you're actually getting a lot more in the back end of it, right? And don't forget, the fact is you want to be competitive because this is a very competitive environment and you want to have a competitive product out there so that you can reduce churn.
Right. And often we don't like to always make the statement of investment protection, but if you look at the length of time that a Wi-Fi standard exists, it can be anywhere up to 5 years. So that's a really important statement to make. All right, Andre, let's take a different perspective now. For those of you that entertain customers, let's look at some of the myths that they are asking about. So myth number one, Wi-Fi 7 has no benefit if I have legacy clients deployed. Over to you, George.
Yeah, so actually Wi-Fi 7 provides a lot of benefit, even if you have legacy clients. And I'll give you a few examples. Number one is, this is a little bit of technical stuff. Wi-Fi 7 standard actually requires the Wi-Fi 7 receive signal sensitivity to be much better, okay? So what that means is that traditionally, if you're using Wi-Fi 6, you may not be able to pick up a weak signal, but with Wi-Fi 7, you can because the specification is just much tighter, okay? So even if you're using a legacy client, if you have a Wi-Fi 7 router, it can actually pick up that client easier. Now, in a mesh environment, let's say your home is deploying some mesh unit and things like that. With Wi-Fi 7, the router and the mesh unit would be using 6 gigahertz for backhaul. So what that does is that it frees up the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz channels for client services. So reduce the congestion and the interference that comes along with using 5 gigahertz as backhaul. Because if you're using 5 gigahertz as backhaul, you pretty much cut your bandwidth by half. Half of it has to go to backhaul, half of it have to serve your clients. But with 6 gigahertz, you don't have that problem anymore, right? So.
Great. That's a great answer. Okay, so myth number two, and this is one I hear often when dealing with opportunities in the MDU and MDU space, is when neighbors are really close by, George, why is Wi-Fi 7 considered to be a help in those particular circumstances? Many people don't think it will be.
Yeah, the interesting thing is Wi-Fi 7 actually is ideal for MDU environment. The reason is if you look at 6 gigahertz, right? There are 14 of the 80 megahertz channel, 14. So that means that your subscribers in each one of these MDU apartments could use one of those 80 megahertz channel for backhaul without interfering with another apartment subscriber, okay? And then when you get to the last of the 14, you basically reuse channel because they're so far apart from each other, right? From the first to the last. So how does that help you? Today, with 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, you only have limited number of channels. So there's a lot of interference with your neighbors. But with 6 GHz, each one of you can select a 6 GHz channel as a backhaul. And then from the front room to the back room, you can turn down the power 2.4 and 5 GHz and not interfering with your neighbor, and thus get better services, right? So that's why Wi-Fi 7 with 6 GHz is really ideal for MDU environment.
Yeah, again, great points there. And for people to understand, those are great analogies. Okay, let's go to the last one, Andre. Let's pull up the myth. And this one, I'm sure a lot of us feel, right? We're all basically consumers. So George's question is really, is Wi-Fi 7 going to have no tangible benefits? Or what is it worth to me if I have to pay more for Wi-Fi 7?
Yeah, many of those points have already repeated, right? As we all know, 2.4 and 5 GHz channels are getting quite crowded. So your Wi-Fi experience will be degraded, right? So I live in California and our houses are like postage stamps. So I can see all my neighbors' Wi-Fi routers, right? So as stated before, newer client devices are more likely to be equipped with Wi-Fi 7. So as we move forward in time, you're going to see that more and more devices are going to be coming out Wi-Fi 7. And how you can provide better benefits is deploying Wi-Fi 7 router. This way, they can jump on the 6 GHz channels without much interference. So it really provides immediate benefits for high bandwidth users with less interference, which obviously translates to better subscriber experience.
Yeah, and I can attest to that. I know that as soon as I activated my Wi-Fi 7 router, my 6 GHz devices immediately jumped and freed up additional space. So thanks for all the answers, George. Appreciate the commentary. And now I'll switch it back over to you, Andre.
Yeah, thanks, John and George. That's exciting. I didn't know about the Wi-Fi 7 benefit when I was listening to you, and I'm actually getting a router delivered today. So I'm looking forward to watching all my devices jump to the 6 GHz band and free up my bandwidth. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you. Next, we're going to cover the broadband network, right, and 50G-PON and PON slicing, myths and reality. And joining me is Mike Emmendorfer. Mike, welcome. First, let's kind of demystify 50G-PON and PON slicing for everyone. The first myth, is it a myth or reality? 50G-PON is designed for residential broadband only. Is that a myth or reality? What do you think, Mike?
Thank you, Andre. Yeah, so really, the answer is the reality is that 50 gig is an enabler here for service convergence. And we'll talk about what that service convergence is going to look like. So what we've done here is we've broken things up into three categories: business services, aggregation services, and residential services. So we think that with 50 gig PON technology as well as PON slicing, we will be able to use PON for more business services, like, for example, in the medium and large business markets, to deliver true 10 gig that's being requested today, and over the life of this next generation PON technology, then 25 gig services. One of the things about 50 gig is that it can enable 50 gig downstream, but operators can choose whether they want to have 50 gig or 25 gig upstream. And in fact, the operators will be able to support both 50 gig by 25 gig ONUs as well as 50 gig by 50 gig ONUs on the same PON interface. They're also going to be able to carve out portions of that PON network for private networking for groups of subscribers or customers as well. One of the other things that PON technology can do is enable aggregation functions where point-to-point Ethernet may have been used to backhaul mobile xHaul or Wi-Fi access points, or to connect MDUs and cabinet locations and even nodes. We think 50 gig PON technology could be used as an aggregation layer technology. Finally, residential services. The billboard speed wars will continue. We don't see them growing at a 50% compound annual rate like they did for the last 40 years. but we do see that the speed wars will continue. And for those cases, 50 gig could be used for some of those operators that want to deliver higher service tiers. Customer traffic will continue to grow, and that customer traffic, as well as the service tiers, could be a driver for some of those residential customers to go over to 50 gig. Next slide.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Yeah. So next question is myth or reality? Is 50 gig PON going to replace XGS PON? I heard this the other day and I was like, well, so what's the real answer, Mike?
Yeah. So very good question here. So the reality is no. So 50 gig, when deployed, can be targeted. So you can surgically deploy 50 gig where and when needed. And it's going to be focused on meeting those business drivers. So as we look at what some of those business drivers might be, it might be having enough capacity to deliver some of the services that we talked about in the previous section. So if we look at essentially the life of GPON and XGS, we'll see then that based on some traffic engineering forecast, and what this is showing here is that with 64 subscribers and 32 subscribers on a network, looking at a compound annual growth rate of 20%, this is showing how much traffic would be generated by those numbers of subscribers, either 64 or 32 subs. And you can see here that just by traffic, we'll eventually exhaust the GPON capacity, and then we'll come close to the XGS capacity. Next animation here. So some have asked, how long GPON would last, and what we're showing here is that with a 1 gigabit service tier, we're looking at perhaps in the 2035, 2036 timeframe with 32 subscribers. And this will enable then that service tier to pass a speed test during busy hour, busy day. Basically those when traffic is going to be at its highest. Next. So then what we're showing here is when XGS could possibly run out of capacity. And what this is showing here is that with 8 gigabit service tier offering, as well as with 64 or 32 subscribers, we're forecasting when a speed test might be exhausted in the 2027 or 2031 timeframe. Next animation. And this shows the big difference between an 8 gigabit service tier offering and a 5 gigabit service offering. Essentially, you get about 10 more years of life out of your XGS network before you'd have to do something. Next. And what we're showing here is that we think XGS has a long life. And one of the things that operators might do then is to extend the life of their XGS network is to move some of those upper service tiers that when exhaustion happens, to move those customers over then to 50 gig. Next slide. So we're going to continue with this traffic projections, and we're going to see how 25 gig and 50 gig will work. Let's see how long 25 gig will last. And so if we look here, 25 gig with a 20 gigabit service tier, depending on how many subscribers are sharing that network, it might last as long as 10 years or maybe even less. So one of the things that we looked at is, should the industry skip 25 gig and go to 50? And let's see what 50 gig capacity would look like. So one of the things that we're showing here is that with 50 gigabit capacity, you'll have 40 gigabits, perhaps by 2038, available to deliver all of those services or those applications that would be that could be capable of using PON technology. And what I'm showing here is depending on if you're 32 subscribers or 64 subscribers, how much capacity you'd have. Next slide.
So Mike, let me go into the myth reality, but what you're telling me is 50 gig offers the ability to have one network for every service, and you can selectively deploy where you want 50 gig PON, where it's needed, what are the business drivers in a certain area. That's what I heard from you. And then the second part of that is that 50 gig PON offers you the capacity to deploy that service in an area with multiple businesses. So you have more capacity to deliver those true 10 gig services on it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. That's correct. And what we showed is that even if 50 gig PON technology is used essentially as a full residential offering, like I said, with 32 or 64 subscribers, there's still a lot of capacity to be available for business services and even some of those aggregation layer transport technologies.
So myth or reality, you can deploy 25 gig PON MSA without impacting your future. Is that a myth or is it reality?
Well, the reality is that you will impact your network and future business, and we wanted to cover a few of those things with you. So, as we look at the wavelength considerations, what we've done here is we've overlaid many of the different PON technologies and the wavelengths that they could occupy. So what we're showing here is GPON XGS, 25 gig MSA, as well as 50 gig, and they can use either options 1, 2, or 3 on the upstream that we are showing here on the slide. We're also showing the possible placement of 100 gig very high speed PON, and we're showing that in some of the overlapping wavelengths of GPON. And the reason why those wavelengths are being considered by the ITU is that in very or no dispersion wavelengths that we think 50 gig PON, excuse me, 100 gig PON technology could be used in this band with even some of the legacy optical technologies. So what we're showing here is all of these technologies and how these different PON wavelengths overlap with one another. And really it's going to be picking which one and which PON technology you want to use. Next up.
Okay.
All right. So one of the things that all operators need to consider is different starting points. So if you've deployed GPON or EPON, if you've deployed XGS or 10 gig EPON, we're recommending that you skip 25 gig. And then you could plan then for that last wavelength in the 1286 upstream to be used for 50 gig. And then over time then, whenever you can reclaim then the GPON or XGS, excuse me, the GPON or EPON deployed ONUs, then you could have a placement for 100 gig. Next starting point. So some operators are at starting point 2. They have not deployed GPON or EPON. They've deployed XGS. And we're still recommending that those operators skip 25 gig, and we talked about that in the previous section, how it really doesn't have a lot of capacity to support the business needs of the future. And we're recommending that those operators that have starting point 2, either XGS or 10 gig deployments today, that they would have the migration strategies to support both 50 and 100 all in the O band. And these would be more cost-effective approaches than placing the 100 gig out of the O band, where coherent optics would be needed. Next up. All right, we've seen this in very, very limited cases, but we've seen at starting point 3 where operators have deployed GPON and XGS as well as 25 gig, that their path to 50 and 100 will be very challenging. So they'll have to likely use a more higher cost optics to place 50 or 100, or they'll have to reclaim some of those existing deployed technologies. So we see 50 gig and 100 gig very, very challenging to deploy if GPON, XGS, and 25GS is already in service. Next up.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. It's definitely interesting to see, when you hear about the different technologies, you don't fully appreciate the decisions you have to make. So you definitely, as a service provider, you have to choose wisely on what your plan is going to be and have a plan. So I thank you for that.
Thank you.
So next myth or reality is about network slicing. This is something that, came up, and I know many of us have heard of it as a technology for just 5G wireless. Is this true?
No, it's not. It is there is the capability of using network slicing beyond 5G technologies, including PON. And I have a couple of slides that show this. So one thing that we wanted to show you is what is network slicing, and it is the carving up of a physical network resource into a logical partition. And what we can do then is with that partitioning of that physical interface, you can provision bandwidth, cost, and latency parameters. And what I'm showing here is an end-to-end slicing architecture that's starting from right to left. You can have Wi-Fi or RAN slicing go over a PON sliced network architecture. And then from the PON slicing, you can go over IETF segment routing. So you can have an end-to-end network slicing architecture. Let's look at the next slide that's going to talk about PON slicing. So PON slicing then will be allocating a portion of that PON capacity, let's just say 50 gig, to groups of users. And those groups of users could have guaranteed bandwidth parameters as well as any access or best effort capacity. So what will happen with PON slicing is that each PON slice will have its own DBA and then managed by a hierarchical scheduler. Next up, we're going to give you two illustrations here. The first one is very simple. A group of subscribers would be in slice A, and another group of subscribers could be in slice B. Next slide is going to say that even within a given ONU, you could carve up that traffic that's going across that ONU into different slices. And each one of those slices would have unique latency and bandwidth properties. What's beautiful about PON technology is any unused capacity above CIR could be used by all other members of that PON port. Next up.
Yeah, that's exciting. Thanks. Yeah, really exciting, Mike. Thanks for that insight. I can't wait to have my own slice of cake. So let's hurry up and get that network slicing.
Sounds good, Andre. Thank you for your time, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Next, I'm going to hand it off to Alan Marks and Arabenda, who's going to talk to you about the myths and reality of artificial intelligence.
Yep. Thank you, Andre. That's great. So, I was thinking to myself, if I were working in network operations and the CTO or COO or my boss came in and said, hey, we're going to implement AI in our network operations. I have to admit there might be a little part of my brain that would think, whoa, is AI going to replace humans and run the network? And so, so maybe Arabinda, you can help put my mind at ease here. What is the reality? This is the myth that I think can creep into folks' head. But what is the reality?
Yeah. So thanks, Alan, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. No, the Skynet was just I would say, a scientific fiction. That's not the blueprint for the future. But here, the AI agents are actually going to help you as BSP to run the network. They're not going to run the network. They're going to help you. And we will show you how they will help. What you see here is an AI agent. But actually, AI agents are different. They're layers and layers of intelligence built in. Next, please. So this is just an example of how a agentic AI framework will look like. So at the bottom, we show you the OLT, ONT, RG, log files. There could also be human text, images, videos, all kinds of data sources that are there at the bottom. Then you have the perception layer, which is collecting all these data sensors intelligently using collection agents. And then comes the cognitive layer for the agentic framework. And cognitive layer will have all the reasoning agents. And agents are nothing but task executors. They are actually, they can plan task, they can execute task, and they can use LLMs underneath for reasoning. And they're more intelligent task executor versus a code that has been statically written, programmatic code that just executes because they have been told to execute, and they just follow the instructions. Here, they will reason it out and they will take their actions. They will also take human feedback. They will learn. So they are intelligent task executors. So RCA, the root cause analysis, could be an agent, anomaly detection agent, forecasting, all of them are part of the cognitive layer. And then comes the action layer, which actually takes actions based on the reasoning that happened in the mid layer. And it could be optimizing your network traffic. It could be optimizing an RG's parameters for better Wi-Fi experience. It could also be a notification agent. It will notify either operations team on outages or services, and it can notify subscribers. And there are escalation agents. Escalation agents could be like a CSR not able to troubleshoot a problem. It will escalate to the next level agent, which is a L2 CSR. Lastly, there is a learning layer, and that layer is the continuous learning layer that learns from all these agent interactions. Also, feedback from human feedback, from feedback from the BSPs like you, and feedback from other sources so that it can continuously improve these agents. And also change of training data, right? The training data will continuously improve, and therefore the learning framework will continue to improve. And these are just example agents. There will be a lot more agents than this in Calix Cloud, and which we will show you later. So where are we going? We are building a new generation Calix Operation Cloud console. You have seen Calix Operation Cloud console, which is, I would say, very static. It's actually packed with information for operations team to look at different kinds of network traffic, the charts, then graphs, time series data, but they have to do things manually. They have to actually dig in themselves. Where we are going is a more AI infused operations cloud console, where it will actually help the operators. It will pop up the problem so that they can click and they can reason it out, and they can launch an agent like an outage agent to do further analysis of this particular outage. When did it happen? Where did it happen? Has there been a ticket open? Things like that. And it can actually converse. The operator can converse with the console. The console is now more active. It used to be passive. So with AI infusement, it will be more like an active console where operators are learning, talking, and also gaining a lot more information a lot quicker. This is an example of an operator assistant or operations cloud assistant. These assistants will help the operator being much more productive. Say, for example, in the first slide where it says, "Is there any outage today?" It will look for outages, and it will tell, okay, I see an outage in the Waco, Texas area. There is a ETA for that, and the operator can ask for more details, and it will dig down further, whether a outage ticket has been opened, because maybe it will even show the OLT, that actually OLT port that knocked out 30 or 60 subscribers right there. And we don't have to create multiple tickets. We just create one outage ticket, and it will, operator will be able to ask, hey, launch an agent to create an outage ticket for this many subscribers. So operator can interact live, just like you do with Chat GPT or Gemini. You use natural language, and it will assist you. We will also allow BYOD, which is bring your own documents. So if you have domain specific documents, your policies, your best practices, your FAQs, we will absorb those in our cloud, and it will be org specific. One BSP's documents and best practices is not shared with other BSPs. They're contained within the box, and it will be more personalized answers going out to your customers. So it's also based on LLMs and also generative AI.
Great, that's awesome, Arvind. I'm looking forward to actually being able to use that for demos. That'll be amazing. Okay, here's the next myth versus reality question. Is AI going to do everything and address every broadband operations use case?
No, not really. Our AI is not a AGI. It's not a artificial general intelligence. It is actually very specific. It's very domain specific, and it will also take care of the use cases that have the greatest business impact. So what kind of use cases we are going to develop? Each of the use cases or tasks now are divided into different buckets for different purpose. Like for marketing, there are a number of tasks that will be performed by agents, and they are listed here. And for Service Cloud, like cross-selling, upselling, speed performance, Operations Cloud, all network related, and also for planning. So all of these will be exposed as agents in Calix Cloud. And also we would encourage other BSPs to have agentic communication, because agent to agent can also talk to each other. And there is industry interoperable protocol, which is A2A or MCP. Those can be used to communicate between agents in Calix Cloud. Like a marketing agent can talk to services, an operations cloud agent can talk to marketing and services. We will be interoperable, but we also would like to be interoperable with your agents, and Calix will demonstrate what can an agent do on your side. And we will also support bring your own agent. Okay, so this is an example of the agents, and these are all sample agents. So we will be building a lot more agentic operational tasks in Operations Cloud. For example, let's say anomaly detection. So it can detect ONT anomalies. Let's say you have ONTs with low light level. You have ONTs, the same ONTs who have low light levels. Also show speed test results which are low compared to the threshold. They may have been rebooting. They may have rebooted 3 times in last month. So all of these data can be correlated by ML algorithm, and it can create different clusters. It can create a cluster of ONTs that are not performing well, and that are cluster of ONTs that are really not performing well and need to be looked at quickly, so that when this agent actually sends the data that these ONTs have severe anomalies, need to be looked at, confidence score is high, then we want somebody to take a look at it, and that can be a human in the loop to take action, or the agent can open a ticket and actions can be taken automatically. Similarly, that could be an outage management agent, which actually detects outage. Maybe the entire region went out, the interface on the OLT went out, or a particular port caused that, or it could be a fiber cut or a power. So these agents have LLMs underneath, the large language models underneath, so they make a very intelligent decisions. So that would reduce your false positives, and that will actually help the operator a lot.
Okay, and how about for customer support, Arvind? What would this look like for customer support?
Very good. For customer support, we have some agents to start with, say, for example, churn prevention. And churn prevention could be a very interesting use case. Let's say the RGs are having trouble. Some RGs have rebooted multiple times already. Their speed test is low. Their Wi-Fi experience score is low. And the subscriber has opened tickets very recently. So there are many factors that actually our agent can dig into with a lot of data and be able to find out which customers are churn risk, and be able to provide that information to engagement cloud that can actually interact with subscribers with, of course, your permission, your policies. So you put policy whether you want to contact those subscribers or not, but you can definitely take proactive action based on that.
Okay, and then speaking of engagement cloud, yeah, how about that, right? How about for marketing? How about, how are the AI agents going to help with things like market analysis and segment and
Yeah.
campaign building and subscriber acquisition and all that?
Let's say a segment builder, right? So the AI agent will actually help, analyze the data, the subscriber information based on subscribers' behavior, based on their demographics, like say work from home type of customers versus heavy gamers who like low latency and high data usage, or even at risk churn customers. So it will actually analyze the subscriber base based on their behavior, based on their needs, based on demographics, and create segments. Now you may ask, oh, can we not do that without AI? Yeah, you can do that without AI, but it will be very static. In this case, it will be very dynamic in the sense that, let's say somebody is working playing games. They may not be playing games every day. They may be playing every Saturday, some time to some time, and that time may be changing every season because maybe they're coming back from college or school and playing during that time, and they're going back to school or college. So that kind of dynamic thing will be better learned by the AI versus you can code it through. And it can create more specific segments like micro segments, which are actually very specific to particular, so that you can reduce your false positive. Again, you can actually find the real subscribers that you want to reach out to.
Great. Yep. Okay. So now, this is a great myth versus reality example. AI is the source of truth. That one I know is a myth. Aravinda, what's the reality on that one?
Yeah, I would say AI is a source of information that needs to be validated or that must be validated. So um, yeah, like hallucination is a problem. It's a known problem in AI systems. Of course, the companies like Google and OpenAI and others are working diligently to reduce hallucination. And these hallucinations means incorrect or fabricated outputs. You must have seen yourself, when you put something in ChatGPT or Gemini, it's not 100% accurate. Sometimes it actually fabricates and gives you some answers. And we cannot do that in our business systems. We have to be very, very confident in the answer or very, very confident in the actions we take. So we have to reduce hallucinations. And there are different mitigation techniques, and some of them are listed here. For example, your training data that you train the models have to be validated. Your domain specific knowledge is very important because these LLMs are trained with generic knowledge in the world and they are not domain specific. We can make it domain specific, like Calix specific. We can make it your BSP specific so that it answers within the guarded rails. And there should be LLM running to give you an output or an answer, but that answer has to be again fact checked with another LLM. So you can put different guardrails with that. You can tune the models. And lastly, human has to be in the loop, right? At least now, because it's not fully developed, there are hallucinations. So human in the loop actually helps making sure the answer is accurate.
Yep. Thanks, Aravinda. Yeah, I think that's really, really critical. That's on a lot of people's minds today. All right, this is the last one of these myth or reality examples we have for AI, and that is that AI is only for large operators. That's not the reality, is it?
No, it's actually for all operators, but it all depends. There is a life cycle of AI maturity model, like let's say level 0 to level 4. You may be at certain level and another BSP may be at another level, but we are almost all the BSPs are now at level 0 or level 1. Maybe some at a higher level, but majority of us are in level 0. We used fixed rules-based threshold detection, alarms, and all of that for monitoring. We have programmatic code, which is, can perform repetitive tasks. But we are working on level 1, which is retrieval agents. That means you give a number of documents and ask AI agent an question, and it will answer back. And that's the operator assistant AI agent I was showing you earlier, where it is generative AI based, and it can actually answer back based on the documentation, facts, best practices, and all kinds of images, videos that we have trained it with. That's retrieval. And then it goes to simple orchestration, that it can orchestrate an agent in Calix Service Cloud, can orchestrate with Operations Cloud. And then it goes to multi-domain complex orchestration, and then multi-agent orchestration, where agents from Calix are talking within a Calix agent or to external agent. So it's a very different maturity model, and any operator can be at any level. At sometimes you may be at multiple levels also, but less maturity on one than the other.
Okay, thank you so much, Aravinda. Now I think we're going to hand it back to Andre.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that's exciting. I can't wait to, use AI and just make my life easier. I know I hear that from operators, so I can focus on higher level tasks or higher level projects for my boss or something. Really quickly, so now that we have demystified the key innovations for these separated myths and reality, and really it's about simplifying the integration of these technologies into your business, right? And how you can address that main challenge that many service providers face. How do you streamline this technology and integrate it? And it's really a platform that simplifies the technology integration. It offers, as you can see here, this is a framework for platforms and the kind of characteristics that you would expect for a platform to have. And it's something that's going to make you integrate these or help you integrate those technologies into your business. So these are key attributes. For example, some of these are just natural, right? Unified interface, modular architecture, security and compliance. You heard Aravinda talk about the security of the data. Those are the things that you should look for. Centralized management, right? Open APIs. These are the things you should look for to integrate that technology in. And that brings me to the broadband platform, right? It's really this comprehensive end-to-end solution that's designed to help service providers transition into experienced providers and simplify their operations, innovate services, scale faster, and really at its core, the broadband platform is this unified network of management operations that includes the foundation for generating services and the components to integrate new technologies and innovations quickly, and really to empower you and provide you the ability to build, operate, and optimize and monetize your broadband services and business. And as you saw, offer a network that gives you not just operational efficiency, but also the ability to launch new services faster and deliver new services to more customers in your area. So really excited about that. Next, Trudy, we wanted to put out our poll. If you can take a few minutes and answer the poll here. We wanted to know, Alan, can you just read the poll real quick?
Yeah. What would you like to learn more about? Multiple choice, you can pick any of these or more than one. The first thing is Calix Broadband Platform Network Design Consult. This is basically talking about, the platform, the subscriber systems, unlimited subscriber, the premises systems, the intelligent access network piece, and the Calix cloud piece, how it's integrated together. And you can get a network design consult on that. Demonstration of Calix Cloud applications. So these are sort of the building blocks that we're building our the AI enablement onto, products like Operations Cloud and Service Cloud. Then there's a network design consult to get you ready for 50G-PON, as Mike and Andre were talking about earlier. And from the very beginning, where John was talking about the Wi-Fi 7, there's a solutions engineering consult on Wi-Fi that you can also select here.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. And this is helpful. I know we know you have lots of questions. We're here to help. We have the expertise, as you heard on the call. And if you have a particular solution or question about how you're going to innovate these technologies into your network and be more efficient, be more proactive, and really help you achieve your business goals, then this is an opportunity for you to do that and work with some of our experts in Calix. So thanks for that. Do we have a minute for questions? Any
Sure.
questions?
Yep, you sure do. And I'll leave the poll open so that folks can.
All right.
request
Yeah,
support.
Yeah.
there were questions in the chat. They were answered in the chat. I don't know if everyone can see the answers in the chat. They probably can.
Yeah, John, did you want to, were there any questions? I think there were in the Wi-Fi area. Maybe you can, if that makes sense, you can.
Yeah, just a couple questions that were related to one on our kit, on our gateways, whether we supported dynamic channel assignments as well as a question on MLO from a device standpoint. And so the answer is yes to dynamic channel selection on our Wi-Fi 7 gateways. All of them support that capability set. And as far as devices that I've had personal experience with are the PS5, but I haven't done any testing on the MLO function. It says it's supported. But I can tell you that the MLO functionality on the iPhone 16 Pro Max, seems to function. But it is limited. It only supports up to 160 megahertz channels. So
Yeah,
I
thanks.
answered both those for those who that were interested in that question.
Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, appreciate it. Lastly, I'll leave. I know we're at the top of the hour, but what is the biggest challenge, if any of the experts on the call want to answer this, what is the biggest challenge around integrating and new technologies into their solution and into their operations? Can anybody talk about that? Or
Well, let me jump in here with the Wi-Fi. One of the beauty about Wi-Fi is that it's quite detached from the WAN side. So if you have an Ethernet cable, you plug it in the Wi-Fi router, whether it's a Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 7, it boots up immediately without any configuration. So in terms of the challenges I see is very minimal.
okay, thanks, George. And I don't know if there was anybody else. Otherwise, just give another minute and then Arabenda, did you have anything on guard?
There was a question on whether the operations cloud will be able to detect DDoS attacks based on numerous out-of-country traffic targeting a specific subscriber IP address using known attack vector ports. The answer is yes. It will be able to understand the normal traffic versus abnormal or anomaly traffic. And that's the kind of stuff we are looking at using the agentic AI framework, where the ML algorithms will help us detect this kind of anomalies and be able to confidently say that there are DDoS attacks and then take care of and take actions using the action agents.
All right. Yeah, thank you. And thanks to everyone for attending. I hope we helped you demystify and find the reality around these technology areas, and then showed you how a platform can help you integrate these technologies quickly into your business, to help you be more operationally efficient, to streamline your operations, to increase your opportunity to generate revenue and grow cost effectively. So I'm really excited to have you, and thanks again for joining the webinar today.
Thanks,
Trudy?
everybody.
Yep. And thanks to our experts.